Hello, good evening, and welcome. They have engaged in street protest, received some beatings, threatened court actions. Now they have consulted with former President Jerry Rawlings and former President John Kufuor, all in an effort to push an agenda for a new electoral rule. What exactly are the arguments of the Let My Vote Count Alliance? Tonight on PM Express, we are discussing the arguments put forward by the Let My Vote Count Alliance to enhance their push for a new electoral rule. Stay tuned. We will be back. My name is Malik Abbas Dabu, your host.
The sovereignty of the land really issues.
You're welcome back. As I said in the introduction, we all know that the Let My Vote Count Alliance, touted as an offshoot of the opposition New Patriotic Party, has been pushing for a new voters register. The governing National Democratic Congress argues there is no need for any new register. But what exactly are the arguments of the alliance? Tonight on this show, I have the spokesperson of the alliance, Mr. Ibrahim Eji, to discuss this topic. So Ibrahim, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Malik.
Does the Let My Vote Count Alliance have any justification for asking for this new register?
Yes, and the justification, firstly, a very good evening to our viewers on PM Express. The justification lies within the findings of the Supreme Court petition back in 2013, the judgment itself, which found that clearly, and Justice Tugoba, if I can paraphrase him, admonished or warned the EC that they advised them to actually put in process several reforms, because clearly the document upon which we all voted in 2012 was flawed.
But the learned judge did not at any point in his seminal ruling state anywhere that there was need for a new voters register.
The need is inherent in the reforms. When somebody says reform, it means change the way you do things. That's the essence of reform. And in addition to that, Malik, post the judgment, we've also now found, principally, in a sample number, 76,000 foreign names on our register, a huge proportion of which was scanned in. And you can only scan those in if you are working within the EC.
This 76,000 being bandied about is not confirmed by any independent investigation. This is the claim of the opposition New Patriotic Party. It claims, by what Dr. Bawumia did, the vice presidential candidate of the party, that it did facial matches and found a potential match of 76,000. This is not independently confirmed. This is your creation.
It's not a creation, because the source of the information is there. Two independent sources. One, the Ghanaian electoral roll, and two, the Togolese. So the biometric facial recognition system is there for any other body to go and verify or otherwise. So we're not using data that we have created. It's data that we have sourced from the Togolese register and the Ghanaian register. In addition to the 76,000 foreign names, and remember, a huge proportion were scanned in. And let's understand something. In order to scan means you are an official of the Electoral Commission. Two, you have the password to the software that enables you to either delete names or add names. And so there's a clear question mark, a big question mark, about the legality of what went on, about the integrity of some members of the Electoral Commission, because what has happened is criminal. Likewise, we've also additionally added 2,096 individuals who have double registered, several other thousands who have triple registered. Now, the system should automatically clean itself. That's what it does. As it finds double or triple registrations, it should clean them.
Why is that not happening?
Thank you. That tells you that the company which won the contract, STL, Superlock Technologies, to actually win the biometric tender. And remember, they didn't even tender. The three companies tendered, and STL were not a part of the tender. When they won the bid, one of the companies took the EC to court for breach of contract. They didn't win that particular case, but that's what happened. Likewise, the United Nations and UNDP stated, and again, this is information that is in the public domain, that STL does not meet international criteria for being able to deploy the AFIS system. What is AFIS? It's the automatic fingerprint identification system. And every fingerprint is unique. So if the BVRs, the machines that STL, who didn't tender but won the tender, supplied, given that every human being has a unique fingerprint, the moment the system recognizes a duplicate, it should automatically reject it. Just as when you go to the bank, you know you have 100 cedis. When you go beyond that, it stops you taking any more money. It rejects any further transactions. As for the technology that STL has supplied the government of Ghana, it is faulty. The UNDP hasn't even sanctioned it as being of a technology worthy in terms of international criteria or international standards, being worthy to actually deploy an electoral biometric fingerprint system. These are the reasons why we are still having triple and duplicate
Are
registrations.
these same things that you are pointing out not evidence that the MPP, as a political party, slept on its rights prior to the 2012 election? And it's common law that he who sleeps on his rights cannot later seek to assert those rights. If you slept on your right and you went into an election and you lost the election, you sent a petition to the Supreme Court and you lost that by a 5-4 decision, now you are clutching at straws, some would argue.
And they would be wrong to argue that. Let's go to CI 75 in terms of the EC. What does it say? That constitutional instrument says 3 clear months before an election, the Electoral Commission should submit the details of those who have registered, in a soft copy form. We received, when I say we, all the political parties, unless the NDC received theirs before, that I don't know, but all the political parties received ours about 2 weeks before. And I think for one party it was 2 days before, but 2 weeks before the election.
But you acquiesced.
No, we didn't acquiesce. We actually agitated for the EC to give us the details, because that's what the CI 75 talks about. We registered May, June, thereabouts of 2012. Then by August, 3 clear months before the election, the EC, as the Constitution demands them, and this is where Dr. Farijan is found wanting, you have to then supply all the political parties with the data so that all the political parties can go and check polling station by polling station that whether or not Malik is indeed on this register and whether he should be. That didn't happen. And we asked for it in the soft copy form, and then we got it in the hard copy form. So it's not about sleeping. And I think that if we all check the news files and the newspapers between August and October of 2012, you'll see numerous news articles about the NPP, the leadership, pressing the EC to submit details of those who have registered. That wasn't forthcoming. And then we said that definitely the EC were working with the sitting government. And of course people say, where's the proof, where's the evidence? Far from sleeping, we were wide awake. And that's why President Rawlings has said that he smells tension in the air. He says what he's sensing now is like 2000 and 2008. And in both instances, change came about because the people are fed up. Right now, Ghanaians are fed up with the delay tactics that is happening with the EC and the apparent collusion with the NDC government of President John Dramani Mahama. We are on a precipice, Malik, that if the EC doesn't do what's right, we don't want to go the way of Kenya. We don't want to go the way of La Côte d'Ivoire. Give us a fresh register. And don't say that we don't have time, Charlotte Osei, because we don't have time to engage and experience what happened in La Côte d'Ivoire or Kenya. And don't say you don't have money, because the EU has said that they will make ready the $70 million that is necessary to actually fund a new register. We have every means possible to make sure that we secure our democracy.
Ibrahim, you are threatening mayhem and you are citing Kenya. When the late President Mills, then candidate Mills in the 2008 elections, said exactly what you are saying, your party cried foul. The MPP vilified the late Prof, accused him of planning genocide in Ghana here because of those comments. Fast forward to 2015, you are making the same comments.
And you look at the context in which he said it.
And at that time, he was pointing out curiously at bloated register.
Interestingly, isn't it the same comments that President Rawlings said yesterday? The same comments that Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings also said. Nana Konadu Adjumoronin said that it's not only about making our votes count, and I'm quoting her here. She said it's about making Ghana safe.
But if you condemned comments, you cannot turn around and use those comments when it suits you.
President Mills at the time talked about bringing Kenya here. That's a threat. We are actually warning against such an eventuality. There's a difference. If somebody says, if you do this, I will attack you, and another person says, let's not do this so an attack won't happen, the two are different.
You were trying to paraphrase what Nana Konadu said. Thankfully, we do have Nana Konadu's interview. Let's pick her. Let's hear what she said when you met her.
I am sad that this country is moving backwards again. Now, if we're going to be able to arrest this, then some of these very topical issues have to be, addressed. The issue of voters register vis-a-vis election and voting, stroke democracy, are all interrelated. We cannot say that we're going to have credible elections when it is clear that the electoral process is flawed. Once it has been discovered that some pictures were actually scanned and pushed into the register, it already flaws the register. Totally flawed. And once it is flawed, that alone, without talking about all the other issues, shows that something has to be done. It is not up to the Electoral Commissioner to decide that she will or she will not do what the people of Ghana want. She is there to do what the people of Ghana want, in consultation with the people that she's working with and the parties around, not in consultation with me, myself, and I. That's not it. So if pictures can be scanned and put onto the register, it already negates it. It's negated. So why don't you just have a new register that will be more credible, make everybody in Ghana happy? If all those recognized groups are saying the same thing, then we cannot all be wrong. We cannot all be wrong and one person is right. So it is important to revisit it.
You're welcome back. One would say the former First Lady, with the greatest of respect, was simply regurgitating claims and allegations, unsubstantiated allegations, of course, that the Let My Vote Count Alliance and the MPP, the CPP as well, and the PPP have been peddling. These are unsubstantiated claims. She was simply repeating the things that you have been putting out there. She didn't say anything new.
Well, I beg to differ. Nana Konadu Adjumoronin, the former First Lady, her party, the NDP, actually wrote to the EC, independent of Let My Vote Count Alliance, many months back.
But relying on evidence put out by the NPP.
I said many months back on that issue. The NPP has brought out their own evidence. Let My Vote Count Alliance also has a petition with details that we wish to petition. Judge Myers, at the last court hearing, when the police were given an injunction, have asked Let My Vote Count Alliance to set a date in October in order to demonstrate and peacefully picket and present our petition to the Electoral Commissioner herself or her office, and we're in the process of doing that. I'm mentioning that you see that different strands of Ghanaians, statesmen, stateswomen, and Ghanaians are all singing the same voice. You cannot tell me that Honorable Joyce Ayi, the former CEO of Ghana Chambers and Mines, is singing our song, or that the Catholic bishops are also singing the same tune as Let My Vote Count Alliance, or the Christian Council, likewise President Rawlings, likewise President Kufuor. I don't think the PPP, Parkwesi Indum, calling for a new register is somehow singing from our own hymn sheet. Likewise, the ODK's party as well. You have Ghanaians now, represented in their millions, clamoring for the same thing. You have President Kufuor and President Rawlings, who between them governed Ghana, our nation, for 27 years, more than a quarter of a century. And I don't think that with their experience, and that's why President Rawlings took us back to how he saw the situation or the environment in 2000. And I'm quoting him, "I smell a stress in the air. And if we don't take care, we could lose what we've got. That's what President Rawlings said. And he said that to remove doubt, and I'm quoting him as verbatim as I can, Malik, President Rawlings said, to remove doubt, let's go for the register, a credible register.
Is it not curious that today it's the MPP that is, and a group aligned with the MPP that is copiously quoting President Rawlings, and you are doing so because it suits you?
In 2008, President Rawlings said this: protect the ballot like it's your son, your daughter, your mother, your child. President Rawlings said that in 2008. In 2000, President Kufuor, candidate Kufuor, said the same thing. Protect, so where's the curiosity? When it is good, it is good. Good doesn't have two names. Good is good. And so where President Rawlings says something that is good, it shouldn't be curious. It's curious when you see the thing is clear and you pretend it's different. Curious is this, that President John Dramani Mahama says that in the past, always done with a young register is clean it. In 2008, we had a new register. In 2012, 4 years going down the road, because of biometric, we had a new register. So what is it? That's the curiosity of that kind of misinformation and deceit by President John Dramani Mahama.
There are those who say running to Rawlings and quoting him and relying on things that he says smacks of hypocrisy on the part of the MPP. But let's pick what President Rawlings said when the Let My Vote Count Alliance met with him.
In order to minimize the stressfulness into 2016, like some of them are saying, like what we've read, everything possible must be done to ensure a very credible electoral process. If this means that we listen to what some of the elders are saying, I've always said that it's an unfortunate thing to abuse the sanctity of the right of choice. And the only way we can really contain and prevent, things from getting out of hand is to ensure that the electoral process and that register are as credible as possible. It's also important that we all speak to our supporters to exercise some patience as they send to hear what the Electoral Commissioner. I'm glad the President's statement has been repeated. They've also expressed the same concern. I hope what I'm saying will also be taken.
You're welcome back. We just heard what former President Jerry Rawlings said when the Let My Vote Count Alliance met with him. I am still here with Ibrahim Aji, spokesperson for the Alliance. What the former president said, and there was wise counsel, let the Electoral Commission determine whether there is merit in the arguments that you are making. It doesn't appear that you are taking the wise counsel. You are trying to stampede the process.
With all due respect, Malik, I don't think anybody's stampeding the process. What we're preventing, rather, is an undue delay. In April of this year, Let My Vote Count Alliance wrote to the EC when Dr. Farijan was there. And what did he say? He said that there's no need to change the register. That's what he said in April. Further down the line, all the parties are saying that the register is flawed.
That is not correct.
No, it is. The NDC have called for a clean-up. You don't clean something that doesn't need cleaning.
Yes.
So which tells you that the NDC recognize that it's not credible as it stands. Let's understand that the NDC have agreed, or they have expounded the view that it needs cleaning. With all due respect, you don't clean something that doesn't need cleaning.
What the NDC has said is that there are some problems. Remember, the MPP says the electoral rule is fundamentally flawed. The NDC disagrees. The NDC says, of course, there are some problems with the register, but it is not fundamentally flawed. There is a fundamental difference between the MPP's position and the NDC's position.
I want to use the key word, Malik, fundamental. That means inherent. Am I right? The basis of the whole structure. That's the fundamental of it. And here we have, in the 2014, you have the Supreme Court, the highest judicial body in this country, saying that the document with which 4 million Ghanaians, I quote Ghanaians in inverted commas, because we don't know if they're Ghanaians, because as the law stands, if you are somebody resident in Ghana, not necessarily a Ghanaian, you can apply for a national health insurance card. Now, 4 million people, let me put it that way, registered with that document, which the which the Supreme Court has said is now ineligible. It is illegal. And you have 14 million people, registered voters. So you have 1/3, nearly 1/3 of the electoral roll being ruled ineligible to vote because that document that they used was false.
Not exactly accurate, because the position of the law is that at the time that they used it, it was not outlawed. But let's take a break. When we come back, we will delve more into this issue of whether the ruling of the Supreme Court, i.e. saying that it was unlawful for anyone to use the NHIS card to register as a voter, dramatically or naturally or automatically invalidates the voters who registered using that card. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Today we are critiquing the claims of the Let My Vote Count Alliance and asking whether there is merit. With me is Ibrahim Eji, spokesperson for the Alliance. So Ibrahim, before we went on the break, we were talking about whether the people who use the NHIS card to register, whether the ruling of the Supreme Court automatically invalidates their registration. My position is it does not, because to the extent that at the time that they relied on the card to register, there was no law prohibiting them from doing so. You cannot argue that their registration should be invalidated.
I'm not arguing. It's the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court's ruling was in 2014, and it's not retroactive. The election took place, so their votes have been counted, let's put it that way, for 2012. But moving forward into 2016, the Supreme Court, and it's their argument, not mine, and with all due respect, nor yours, Malik, they're saying that document is no longer valid. When a document is no longer valid, you have to go for a fresh document. And for example, when your passport expires, you cannot say, the fact that I've used it all this while and I'm still the same person, I can still use my passport. It's expired as per the laws of the Ministry of Interior, because it's the Ministry of Interior who issues passports, and it gives you an expiry date. When it expires, it expires. Likewise, the Supreme Court has said for electoral purposes going forward, post-2012, they're not tampering with the votes of 2012. They're saying from henceforth, that document is no longer valid. 4 million people use that document to gain a new voters register. And so they have to now go for a new voters register and provide relevant legal documents to gain a voters register. And that's the Supreme Court talking.
I sense you are relying on a legal principle that says that the law deems not to have been done something which ought not to have been done. If you ought not to have used NHIS card to register and you did, the law deems that you didn't register at all. That is the principle your party is seeking to rely on.
Now, what the Let My Vote Count Alliance is relying upon is the fact that you have the Supreme Court saying that post-2012, those who registered, and the Electoral Commission has the details of those who registered with the NHIS card, because when you went to register, the documentation that you were using to prove your nationality was marked accordingly. So they have that data there. Now, when you're going to call 4 million people back so that you can get them to re-register, doesn't it make sense that you allow everybody to register freshly, cleanly, so that we all have the confidence, all political parties have the confidence that this new document has the support of everybody?
There are those who argue that when you go to register as a voter, the primary document that you use is your old voters registration, voters register card, your old voters card. All these 4 million people have obtained a voters card, which is a primary document which they would need to produce when they are registering. So the problem doesn't get solved even if you were to compile a new register, because all those voters will still come to the electoral areas, produce that voters card that they hold as evidence that they are voters and they ought to be allowed to vote. And Osei Nketia makes the argument, where is the evidence that if we were to go and compile a new register, the problems that blighted this one would not occur again?
Good.
Where are the guarantees that you, the political parties yourselves, will not bus children to go and vote and compromise the register? And he further argues that, in his opinion, there were minors on the register, and that is obvious on the face of the register itself. But his solution is, and it would seem that makes sense, that why not leave the register as it is, so that children who registered, minors who registered in the last elections, if they were 14, by next year they will be 18. They would have reached the voting age, and it would be fair.
So what of the minors who were 9? What of the minors who were 8? We saw the pictures in the Supreme Court. We had minors who were clearly 8, 9, or 10. So what do? You leave those ones in there as well? But secondly, to answer your question, Malik, in terms of whether or not, how do we guarantee that it won't get bloated again? The cure is simple. When you see the problem, you apply the solution. You do not allow people to vote, register using a previous voter's ID card. And then what happens to those who were not, who had registered for the first time? When you're 18, in the year of registration, you do not have a voter's ID card. So what principal document do you use? What did they use? That's the question that we have to ask. You said that most people, when they go to register, as they did in 2012, had a previous card. Now, we know that 60% of the population, 60%, as per the Ghana statistical records, is under the age of 14. That's 60% of the population. GSS, that's their records, 2010 census. So I'm just putting it out there that the majority of people who go on to register, a huge proportion of them are registering for the first time. A huge proportion, not the majority. And they don't have a voter's ID card. But they're able to register using other legitimate means of identification. Birth certificate, passport, driver's license for those of them who have turned 18 or 19 in that year, and other official documentation other than the voter's ID. So the solution to Osei Nketia's problem of understanding reason is simply this. You make sure, as per law, that you cannot use a previous voter's ID card to register. It happened in Nigeria. When Professor Jega, when they had the biometric readers, that's what they did. They saw the problem ahead, and they solved it accordingly. And look what happened in Nigeria as well. No verification, no vote. You remember what President John Dramani Mahama said? He said 2 weeks ago, it's not his job, this was last week, it's not his job to interfere in the Electoral Commission. You heard him.
He said
that.
The Electoral Commission
but what happened in 2012? When the machines broke down, President John Dramani Mahama interfered, illegally so, in the EC by saying, everybody...
That's not fair.
It's totally...
He did not interfere.
Fact is fair.
He was a stakeholder in that election.
So he should have kept quiet.
What he did was to say, in his opinion, and at that point he was an ordinary citizen expressing an opinion that in his view, voters should not be disenfranchised simply because the machine cannot identify them.
Until and when President Mahama gets voted out of office, he is not an ordinary citizen. At the time he spoke, he was a sitting president of Ghana. And when he said that the Electoral Commission should allow everybody to vote, whereas the Constitution, the law, says no verification, no vote. Why didn't he allow the Electoral Commission to get the BVR, the machines, the biometric machines, to be rebooted or work again, because they broke down, and then we have the election, if not on the Sunday or the Monday?
He didn't quite issue any instructions because he does not have the power to do so.
You know,
he simply said, and I watched that clip very well.
We all watched.
He simply said, in his opinion, it was not fair to disqualify any person from voting simply because the VVR cannot identify the person.
But that's the law.
When there are other people in the community who can identify the person.
That is not the case. You know what? The law is the law, because we're not talking about who can identify it. So it's talking about no verification. What happened in Nigeria? Goodluck Jonathan had to be scanned with they call those the biometric reader. 4 times, President Goodluck Jonathan. Who didn't know him in Nigeria? But if the reader didn't catch him, it's not that I don't recognize him. It means maybe you haven't registered. Remember, not everybody registers. It's a fact. Not everybody votes. It's a fact. So you can't come and say, because I think you look like the person, then I'm giving you access. No verification, no vote. I'll take you to Ilorin West in Nigeria. Ilorin is the capital of Kwara State. And you heard the university lecturer giving the figures. They said Ilorin West, I remember the figures. It went like number of registered voters, 910,000. Number of accredited voters, 600,000. 300,000 voters in Ilorin West had been removed because the machine did not recognize them. Again, because they were having that bloating exercise. And that's why we have such a credible or more credible election in Nigeria, which elected President Muhammadu Buhari.
That's what we have to do. The Nigerian election was credible.
More credible.
Simply because an opposition party won.
No.
If Goodluck Jonathan was re-elected, I am sure we will be crying about a fraudulent election.
How we know it's more credible is simply by the numbers. You saw how the numbers said, and I gave you an example of Ilorin West, 910,000 registered voters, but only 6,000 were accredited. Because people just joined the queue, as President Mahama allowed them, and said, let everybody vote. And I remember his quote. He said, but imagine if it's a chief. We all know he's a chief. Allow him to vote. But if the chief has not registered, why allow him to vote?
There's no evidence that after the president spoke, anybody anywhere was allowed to vote without going through verification.
We had so many people going through face only. And then at the Supreme Court, those who were face only, and face only, the reason why it was face only, because some, you had leprosy, some people didn't have fingers and hands.
That's what
and they were registered. It numbered less than what, 2,000, as I recall from the Supreme Court, nationwide. Less than 2,000 face only. But how many people went through the face only avenue? That was the day that we had the problem, when President Mahama interfered and allowed for people to go and vote in contrast to what the law states. If the law says 60 miles per hour, and President Mahama says, no, allow them, at least the machine is there, let them go 90 miles per hour, 90 kilometers per hour. And then you go at that speed, and you kill people on the motorway. Then President Mahama says, no, it's not my fault. But you interfered. When the law says this is the speed limit on the motorway, and you allow people to drive anyhow. And this will not happen again. We pray to God Almighty that in 2016, if the machine doesn't read you, go home. Don't challenge the law, because the law says no verification. It's the law, not Ibrahim speaking, or let my vote count Alliance Mali. The law says no verification, no vote. I'm answering your question as to how do we prevent another bloating. 2, what you do is we insist, if the Electoral Commission, after registration, we pray, inshallah, with a new register, doesn't release the details of those who have registered in August of 2016, I swear by God Almighty, inshallah, there will be no election.
You're swearing.
I swear, that means my commitment to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, because the law says 3 months before the election, and as it's still slated now, elections are due to be had on November the 7th, 2016.
Ibrahim, you didn't quite answer Asidin Ketia's second problem.
Which was?
Where are the guarantees that you will not bus minors to go to the polling centers and vote and register?
Thank you.
Where are the guarantees?
There are 2 ways to guarantee that. 1, you make sure, remember, we are all stakeholders. And where you see minors coming in, we don't put a political party on it for now, for the sake of this discussion, Malik. We as citizens can do citizens' arrest. We are allowed to do that. That's number 1. Secondly, to cure, let's say, some minors slipping in. Let's accept that there's criminality in the process. So to cure some minors slipping in, that's where the EC has to do their job as per the law. And I'm citing CI 75. 3 months before the election, produce the list of all those who have registered. So all the political parties can go polling station by polling station. And this year, or next year, we'll have 30,000 polling stations because of the increase in the number of constituencies, from 230 to 275. And that's how we have the document then, all the political parties, to check. And then we can eliminate. That's why they give you 3 months, Malik. If the EC doesn't give us the details by August, and when I say I swear, it's not a threat, it's my commitment to Allah, to God Almighty, that we will do everything legitimate to make sure that we have that document. If not, the election cannot come on, because I cannot check 2 days, and I cannot use 2 days to check. When I say I, all the political parties cannot use 2 days, Malik, as happened in 2012, to check 30,000 polling stations and 14,028,000 names. It's not possible. 1 million of those names, Dr. Farijan told us, were ROPA, Representation of People Abroad Law. And then when he was asked to produce the evidence, he produced 4,000 names out of 1 million at the Supreme Court. I'm saying this is how we cure Asare Nketiah's dilemma about how to prevent it bloating. You make sure that we police it properly, all parties. 2, the EC releases the names, so then we can eliminate those minors and those who have double registered 3 months ahead of time. This is how we cure it. And then you prevent people using a previous voter's ID card to register again. If we do this, and we have the new register, I pray to God Almighty, and I'm confident, I trust God, as you do, Malik, that He will give us a new register, and we'll have a peaceful, democratic election in 2016. So whoever wins will have the confidence of the whole nation.
Ibrahim, the points you raise, and you made your point eloquently about no verification, no vote, minus. You raised all of these points in court. The Supreme Court rejected them. How can anybody be convinced that there's merit in your argument when you couldn't convince members of the Supreme Court panel that heard the election petition that there was merit in your argument?
What was the ruling? 5-4?
Yes, 5-4.
So we convinced 4 Supreme Court judges. Let's understand that. We work a majority. But understand something. If you gain 80% in your maths exam, it's 80%. 20% you got wrong, but I can't take the 80 from you. If you gain 50, I can't take the 50 from you. You gain 50. Even if you gain 40%, you got 40% right. 60% you weren't able to do. So let's understand that 4 Supreme Court judges were convinced that no verification, no vote was wrong. That overvoting, and overvoting is clearly stated in CI 49, which says that if the number of people who voted at the polling station and the numbers in the ballot box exceed the number who voted. Remember, you can have 1,000 registered, but only 5 people turn up to vote. Am I right? Good. Now, if you have 6 ballot papers in that's overvoting. Now, how on earth, I don't know, that Asare Nketiah was able to convince the judges of his own definition of overvoting. Only God knows, and God has His way of doing things.
Maybe the failure was yours. You were unable to convince the judges. But let's take a break. When we come back, we will continue with this discussion. It's PM Express. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Tonight we are discussing the Let My Vote Count Alliance's arguments for a new voters register. The group has been meeting with opinion leaders and met with former President John Kufuor. Let's hear what the former president had to say about their case, and then we can come back into the studio and continue with the discussion with Ibrahim Ajay, spokesperson for the alliance.
The sovereignty of the land really issues from the people. And this is why we vote. So the citizens use their vote, indicating their power to pick people to represent them in their fora, whether it's the legislature or even the executive. And so if a citizen, and there's people demanding needn't even be majority of the people. But if truly some section of the people, or most of the people, or whatever, should feel that they need to be sure of the quality of the vote, deciding who should govern, those people should be entitled. And the Electoral Commission is accountable. It's accountable to the people generally. The Electoral Commission is a power, not a power unto itself. I think this should be made clear. Yes, the Constitution provides for its independence, but that same Constitution has as its cornerstone accountability and transparency. Accountability to the source of power, and that source is the people, the citizenry. The Electoral Commission is accountable, and our Electoral Commission must be transparent. The cost of having a faulty election cannot be imagined. I've had opportunity, as I was reminded, to see what transpired in Kenya. Within the short space of about a month, over 1,500 people got slaughtered. We are not counting the other properties destroyed. I was in Côte d'Ivoire. I led some observer teams to observe the election, the last one. And in fact, the coming election, again, I'm leading a group to observe in that country. I led a team to observe the last Nigerian election. And the one before that too, I led the team to observe. So I've seen what faulty elections can do to otherwise peaceful people. Ghana has escaped so far some of the devastations that overtook those lands. We pray they don't happen here in Ghana. And so I'm with you entirely, completely, that the Electoral Commission should not plead excuses like cleaning the register. We've come to the point, and it's a new electoral commission, or chair of commission. I hope she will start her tenure with a very clean slate.
You're welcome back. We just heard former President Kufuor talk about the fact that the Electoral Commission is accountable to the people, because from the people emanates power and authority. We are talking to Mr. Ibrahim Ajayi, spokesperson for the Let My Vote Count Alliance. You met with the former president where he made these comments.
We did, in fact, and we were honored and privileged and grateful for the counsel that he gave when we met him at his residence this morning. Likewise, President Rawlings as well, and Nana Konadu Rawlings, the former First Lady as well. We're grateful to all of them.
The former President Kufuor spoke about accountability,
yes,
and the fact that the Electoral Commission is not law unto itself.
Yes.
But at this point, the EC has not demonstrated any tendency to be lawless. The EC is acting within the law. You send your concerns, the EC says, bring your proposals. What are your problems? Bring them. The EC chair says they have received about 30 proposals, and they've set a date to organize a forum to maybe take presentations. The EC is working, is acting on the issues that you raise. There's no basis at all for anybody to suggest, and I am not saying that the former president suggested, that the EC is being lawless and being law unto itself.
Well, we recently had district assembly elections in September. Why did we have them in September, not February of this year? Because the EC was a law unto itself. It went outside of the Constitution. The EC, under Dr. Farijan, started the process of the district assembly elections without having the necessary constitutional provisions. They were taken to court, they lost the court case, and the district assembly elections in February could not come on because the EC was a law unto itself. And it cost us $250 million in the process. So let's look at the entirety of how the EC works.
Yeah, but that was on a different matter.
Why is it a different matter? Law is it's an election. District assembly are elections. We're talking about elections here. Where is the apples and pears argument here, Malik? Are district assembly elections not elections? Are national elections? It's elections. And the EC went out, contravened the law, to which we had to postpone district assembly elections. So I respectfully would like to differ from you or depart from you and say that
I am making is that I agree with you, and I do know that Afenyo Markins brought an action. He actually wrote to the EC. The EC didn't listen and proceeded to start to initiate processes to conduct the district assembly elections, on the basis of which he went to court and obtained a judgment against the EC, which truncated the processes. But I am saying that as far as this matter is concerned, as far as your arguments about the register are concerned, the EC has not taken any action that can be interpreted to mean that the commission is being lawless.
Thank you. Let me give you another example. Right now we have a transfer process, a transfer of votes process exercise undergoing from now until December. I think you're aware. Whereby, and why do people transfer votes? Let's say you're living now in Kaswa and now you go to live in Teshi. You can transfer your votes, so on the day of voting, you can actually go and vote. Am I right? That's the process of it. That legality is only allowed 45 days before an election. It's the law. Transfer of votes, that exercise whereby you can transfer your vote can only happen 45 days before an election. I'm talking a national election. But the exercise is going on now, 12 months before the election. Hold on, Malik. I'm just giving you examples.
We don't have too much time.
Then I'll be very brief.
I wanted us to look at
showing you how the EC
what
is
exactly
being lawless.
are you doing? What exactly do you think can or should be done in order that what you want can happen within the framework of the law? I.e., how do we answer Asidu Nketia? How do we compile a new register? If the EC comes to the conclusion that there's merit in your argument, how do we compile a new register in a manner that takes care of all the issues that plagued this one, so that we have a better, cleaner, more reliable register?
Thank you, Malik. This is the process of having a new register. First and foremost, in having the new register, you make sure that certain processes are in place. And remember, everybody becomes vigilant. That's the whole process of it. Where you see minors, you make citizens arrest. That's for everybody. Secondly, again, in terms of making sure there's no cross-border registration, again, it's again about vigilance on that side as well. But then to cure it, how do we cure it? You make sure that nobody can use a previous voter's ID card. And for those who say, how is that possible? As I mentioned earlier, those who are 18, and we have a huge number who are 18 for the first time during an election year, and they register without a previous voter's ID card. So you make sure that no previous voter's ID card, in light of the ruling of the Supreme Court, that the 4 million people who registered with the NHIS card are now, for 2016, ineligible. That needs to be done. Thirdly, the EC has to make sure, in accordance with the law, CI 75, 3 months before the election, and next year's elections will be held in November, or November 7th, 2016. So we're looking at August, September, October, November. By August 2016, Charlotte Osei should make sure that she releases, her office releases the details of all those who have registered. So all parties have 3 months in which to then go and verify or apply to have eliminated those people or names that should not be there. If we do this, it will work. And then again, there needs to be transparency. Clearly, STL has not worked because a system, STL is the company that was given the contract because they didn't bid for it, who were given the contract to supply the biometric readers. We need another company, in my candid opinion, because how is it that a company supplies machine that is not able to distinguish between two fingerprints that are the same? If I went to my ATM right now, Malik, to withdraw money, and I put in the wrong PIN number, it doesn't give me the money. I can't access my account. But if it was STL operating my bank, I can put in 000453, whatever number, and I'll get money. Because clearly STL, the company, is inefficient, and we need civil society, we need parliamentarians, we need all stakeholders to push the EC to get a reputable company that is internationally recognized in order to supply us with the biometric technology that we need. These incidences will prevent the bloating and will help to cure foreigners being on our list, 76,000 and counting, triple, double registration, and the minors as well. If we put these things in place and then we adhere to no verification, no vote, in 2016 we will elect a president that everybody in Ghana will support.
And this is where today's show comes to an end. Ibrahim, thank you very much.
Malik, thank you.
This show was directed by Azalo and supervised by Mike Bright. My producers have been my own sister Aisha Ibrahim and Eko Sam. Thank you. Good night.